Good afternoon, Mr. Jones. We appreciate you being here. Please identify yourself, what organization you are representing, if any, and how you'd like to be referred to, please.
Thank you very much. My name is David Jones. I'm representing myself. I'm from Dartmouth, Nova Scotia.
Well, thank you very much for being here, Mr. Jones. We have 10 minutes for a presentation and then 5 minutes of questioning from the committee.
First off, the first thing I want to say is thank you so much to Cheryl and Hillary for their presentations, grounding us in Mi'kmaq heritage and history, and this true story of the evolution of hockey in Nova Scotia, in Mi'kma'ki. When I first learned about this bill by mistake, by accident, I saw on Facebook there was a post by the Premier about the American hockey team and his thoughts on that. And someone in the comments said, well, how does this relate to the Birthplace of Hockey Act? And I said, the birthplace of what? And I've been researching hockey history since I was a little boy. My dad, Martin Jones, wrote a book called Hockey's Home, Halifax, Dartmouth, The Origin of Canada's Game. In 2002, it was a national bestseller. It was read all around Nova Scotia, Canada, and the world, and it spoke specifically about Dartmouth being the birthplace of hockey, but also it really talked about the Mi'kmaq story and the connections, and not just Mi'kmaq people making hockey sticks that were sold by Star Manufacturing and local sporting goods, but just really having a most profound impact on the game. And I noticed in the bill there isn't anything that mentions the Mi'kmaq. There's nothing about their contributions to hockey. There's nothing about records showing that in the 1860s they were playing with white people on the Dartmouth lakes, combining their traditional stick and ball games on ice with wooden skates, with bone skates, with like Irish and Scottish traditions of what would develop into hockey. There's nothing about the Mi'kmaq, and there's nothing about the multiple contributions of African Nova Scotians, especially through the Coloured Hockey League of the Maritimes, which developed right here with teams from Halifax, from Africville, from Dartmouth, from black communities throughout Nova Scotia and the Maritimes. And not being facetious, as being someone that has studied hockey history for so long, I truly think this bill was written with ChatGPT. And I'm not trying to make a joke. I'm being 100% honest. So when you go through it line by line, there's inconsistency after inconsistency. It mentions multiple paintings of early hockey being played in Nova Scotia. There's only one. That one is from the 1860s, done by H.B. Lawrence, and that shows Dartmouth. It says on the painting, the Dartmouth Lakes, and it has a game of curling, and in the background there are people skating with hockey sticks playing hockey, and that is in Dartmouth. It's not in Windsor. Another thing, we've been talking about 1810. 1810 is a made-up number for hockey, a made-up year. So in 1844, there was a true work of fiction by Thomas Chandler Halliburton called The Attaché, or Sam Slick in England, and it was a 4-part novel. And in that, all that is mentioned is there are 2 fictitious characters, a squire and Sam Slick, and they're talking back and forth. And one of them goes, oh, like you're always going on about the old days. I bet you would talk about this, and that. And then they say Hurley on the Long Pond. Hurley is an Irish stick and ball game where the ball is bounced on a stick. It's very different from hockey. And in that reference, there's nothing about using skates. There's nothing about a hockey stick. There's nothing about teams, on and on and on. And I think that's a big blaring gap. And so that was written in 1844. It's known as a work of fiction. So people that were Windsor proponents say, well, Thomas Chandler Halliburton was born in 1796. So let's say if he was 4 years old and this book was truly a work of nonfiction and he was playing hockey, let's say he was playing hockey when he was 4. And on signs, you'll see Windsor, birthplace of hockey, circa 1800. So that number is made up. It's fictitious. It's not based in anything near reality. Furthermore, something that is not mentioned in this bill, everyone, is in 2002, the Society for International Hockey Research published a report investigating the claim that Windsor is the birthplace of hockey. Guess what they found? They declared that Windsor is in no way the birthplace of hockey and that their evidence is based solely on one work of fiction from 1844. And Windsor proponents, starting in the 1980s, said, well, those imaginary boys that they talk about playing hockey, which is actually hurley, which isn't hockey, they must have taken this game all around to Halifax and Dartmouth and to Montreal. They must have spread it around the world. But the report also says there's no evidence that any such game played in Windsor turned into anything else. So if you look at that 1844 claim, that's just a blip or a silo in the hockey or really hurley story. Whereas the Mi'kmaq claim, not even the claim, the Mi'kmaq story of hockey, that goes back hundreds or thousands of years. And the best sticks in the world were Mi'kmaq handmade sticks made of hornbeam, ironwood, ash, yellow birch, and they were carved in Halifax, Dartmouth, at Turtle Grove, at Lake Bannock, and Lake Micmac, and on the Spagnagity First Nation in Indian Brook and in Millbrook. They were made all around the province, and they were shipped all around the world. And early NHL teams, starting in 1917, in their ads, they would say, we use the best equipment in the world. We use star skates and star sticks. And in all those advertisements, it would say, at the time, using that language, it would say Indian made or Micmac made, but we know it is made by Mi'kmaq artisans. And also, as I wrap up, everyone, Dartmouth has really strong evidence. So I was growing up in Dartmouth is the birthplace of hockey household, my dad writing a book about Dartmouth being the birthplace of hockey, and I learned so much. On Oat Hill Lake, which is in the Hawthorne School Manor Park area, tucked up above beautiful Lake Bannock, in 1867, there was a detailed newspaper record. So if we look at the Little Windsor claim, Hurley on the Long Pond, it's that long, it's in a work of fiction. In the 1867 February 17th newspaper, it says that the ice on Halifax Harbor, it used to freeze, ice on Halifax Harbor and Lake Bannock and Maynard's Lake isn't good. They called it a sheety, not the other SH word, but SHEETY, like a crackly sheet of ice. And they said we had to really work. We had to do our homework. They didn't have Facebook to say, hey, where's the good hockey place? They had to go look for it. And they went in the woods, and they said they took an old path. I wonder who made that path. That would have been a Mi'kmaq path in the woods. And they said, we took an old path to where our grandfathers used to fish. And we found this great lake called Oat Hill Lake. What a surprise. And today it's still a hidden gem beyond 1867 to 2026. And anyways, the newspaper report says there were 1,000 people watching. There were two teams, the Army and the Navy. The garrison brought two military teams to play. And on the other side of the lake, they said the locals. They had like kind of nasty names for them, saying that they were a little rough from Dartmouth. But on the one side, there was the locals playing their version of hockey, and on the other side was the Army and the Navy. So you have the first written record of two teams playing each other. And by definition, for the Society of International Hockey Research, they want evidence of two teams playing hockey. There you have it. And they also mentioned the first time that beer and hockey were ever paired together because they brought a hot beer machine. Sounds kind of gross. I think I'd rather hot chocolate out there on the ice, but they brought that and they had a military band. So you have the best recorded version of hockey that you could ever wish, and it's right there on Oat Hill Lake in 1867. And finally, I want to say, someone asked me the other day on the news, it was Paul Hollingsworth, he said, how come people still think it's Windsor after like all this evidence by the Mi'kmaq and of the Colored Hockey League of the Maritimes and of Dartmouth? And I said, well, Windsor has better PR. They have these big, nice, shiny signs on the 101, which I have to remind you have now been taken down. They took out the birthplace of hockey. So I wonder if the province is taking down a sign that said Windsor is the birthplace of hockey, why are they putting an act that says Windsor is the birthplace of hockey? It makes you kind of wonder. But on those signs, everyone, if you were driving to the beautiful valley or to a Halifax, Dartmouth, you would have noticed there were red and white hockey jerseys on players, and they had a big white W on the red jersey. I wonder where they ever got that image. They stole that from a Star Manufacturing ad in Dartmouth. Star made the world's first modern hockey skates. no coincidence that was in Dartmouth, which was like the incubus of hockey. And Star made 17 million pairs of skates that were shipped all around the world. It's on Prince Albert Road. The remains of the plant are still underneath the ground. They took that from a 1890s Star ad with a hockey player on Lake Banook with a red and white uniform with a giant white star. In downtown Windsor, there was a sign using that exact ad. It wasn't abstract, and they stuck a W on it to make it look like early hockey. So that kind of stuff is a little wonky, and I'd like you all to really reconsider this bill. I think it should be scrapped, and I think a better use of resources would be for the province to team up with the Historic Sites and Monuments Board of Canada to recognize Mi'kmaq contributions to hockey. I think that would really tell a more accurate story, and it would get a lot of interest in hockey instead of making a claim that is shot down within like a minute worth of Googling. So everyone, thank you so much for allowing me to speak.
Wow, well, thank you very much. Yeah. That wasn't sheety at all. Now I'd like to open the floor for 5 minutes.